as soon as I agreed to go snowboarding, I think internally I knew, like, okay, right, really, Frankie? I think I knew that what I was agreeing to do was face uh, multiple fears, not just a fear, and um, that's challenging for anybody, I imagine. There are things internally, things about our brains and our chemistry and the way we're wired that we know for ourselves, like, are difficult to change, obviously, which is what makes us human. Fears are one of those things, and the entire ride, and just backtrack a little, it was a trip for my friend Mario's birthday, doing the whole, everything you do to get to a mountain and go snowboarding. And the whole time I was, like, I had it in my gut, like, I was nervous. I don't think I was scared. I was nervous, though, because I didn't know what to expect. But I knew a couple things about myself. One thing I knew for sure is I've never been good at the types of things that basically put your body in danger. I knew that, like, when it came to skateboarding, I was always bad at staying balanced. I was always bad at, like, kind of navigating my center of gravity long enough to kind of stay, like, you know. I also knew that I had, I guess a fear of heights kind of calculates in here as well. Like a fear of being at a tall place and looking downward, and then also just kind of throwing your body in that direction and trusting that, like, yeah, sure, like, I'm gonna go in the right direction. Like, I'm not gonna mess this up. So I knew going in, like, I was gonna be tackling all of this stuff. And that's hard to communicate to people, but, like, I wanted to do it. I think that's the important part to understand, I guess, in this story is that, like, for me, it was like, I want to tackle this and I want to see why this is a thing that, and maybe not necessarily the why, but, like, is this a thing that I can approach and tackle and maybe sort of investigate and do for myself. But then you get to the top of the mountain after very little, lessons at the bottom. I should have stayed at the bottom a little bit longer. I should have maybe given myself the time to learn a little bit more about how to use, because, like, in my head, the reality of snowboarding is I've just locked my feet into a board that will now keep my body in this position for the remainder of a time in which I'm then going to throw my weight down a mountain in a way that makes me completely uncomfortable. And maybe I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe it's a weight thing. I'm a little chunky, I'm a little soft. And so maybe it's like a not knowing exactly where my center of gravity is from time to time and never really having learned that. There's a chance that has a lot to do with it. God, this is an embarrassing story. But if you can't tell embarrassing stories about yourself, what's the point? You gotta be honest with yourself, and you gotta be able to tell embarrassing stories, and this is one of them. So I'm at the top of the mountain, and my friends are sort of waiting for me to figure out I'm trying as hard as I can to figure out how to get up, just how to get upright, how to get up into a position where, like, I can do the thing we're supposed to do. And I was getting frustrated with myself, I was getting frustrated with my body. I have fairly strong legs, but, like, they were being, like, pushed to the core, and nobody tells you, like, that snowboarding is gonna work so much of your, like, core and, like, the everything. And I struggled. And finally, they coached me a little bit down, and then I was like, look, like, just go, like, enjoy your time. Like, it's gonna take me a while to get this. And so they did, and man, it was a rough, patchy start for me to get up, and once I got up, it was really difficult for me to stay balanced. I tried really hard. There were a couple moments where I had it for a couple seconds, and then I would sort of in my head lose control of like the direction the board was going in. Um, and that was terrifying to me. It was terrifying to not figure out how to feel in control of the direction of the board. Like when I got up and when I was kind of figuring it out, and I did, I like at some points definitely figured out the motion. When I figured out the motion, I would then get so lost in my head about I'm going to fly off this mountain. I'm going to lose control of this board and I am going to fly completely off this mountain, and I'm going to fly into somebody or like break things or hurt myself. And like that fear, that like crippling like thing took over my brain. I'm like, you're going to get hurt and you're going to hurt other people and you're going to do, and like it was such a struggle to try and like fight through those thoughts and just do the thing that we knew we had to do. Stay balanced and get down a mountain without hurting yourself. I ended up at one point, like I went to kind of stand up after falling. I took some pretty gnarly falls, but I went to stand up, and I have an old injury in my knee from a long time ago, and I kind of just not fully twisted it or pulled it the wrong way, but just enough that like my knee then like kind of started to throb, and there was pain, and I was like, oh God, like I think I've pushed my body further than I was ready for, and I don't know how much further I can go. So I inched my way further down, and then eventually I had to, and I mean, here's the embarrassing part. I had to unclip the board and start walking. And at some point, a medical team member showed up and was like, hey, like, you all right? And I explained to him, like, yeah, like, I think I just, like, kind of tried to push my leg too hard. And he's like, all right. He's like, what's your plan? And I was like, man, I don't know. They dispatched someone to come get me. Well, I mean, that took forever. There were so many people kind of falling over and needing assistance. And so, like, eventually, they tell me to sit tight. This guy comes to get me, and it's embarrassing to know that your first time doing something requires like medical attention, even though it wasn't real medical attention. I told him I'm not hurt. I don't know that I can actually physically get down the mountain the rest of the mountain while strapped to the board. So they strapped me into the back of one of those like gurneys, and it took me to the bottom of the hill. And the impressively embarrassing thing about this, we picked another girl up on the way who had like hypothermia around her ankle, and I was like, of course you do. I don't have that. I'm just a weaker human. But the whole way down, so like I'm facing up the mountain, kind of sitting in this thing, and she's kind of like at my like knees, like facing as well. And the whole time we're kind of going down the mountain, there's this team of medical skiers dressed in red behind us, and they're all just doing this like perfectly like synchronized descent. So we were being followed by like 5 or 6 team members who were like, oh right, this is how you do it. And so yeah, I finally that's how I made it to the bottom my first time snowboarding. I know of myself that I have these fears in me. Even though I have family members on both sides of my family. I have cousins on both my mother and father's side of the family who are like dudes who are like, even females, both males and females who like are just like, yeah, let's do this thing, let's play this sport or put our bodies in danger. And then there's me, and I don't know where it started or where it came from, but I became at some point I just birthed these fears about my breaking my body and putting my body in danger. I actually thought about going to, I'm going to admit this right now, recently thought about going to one of those hypnotherapists where they're like, they can put you under hypnosis and kind of make you face your fears. And I'm sort of wondering like, would that work? Is that something I should like really consider?